almost there, brother. All right. Mr. J, we are on the Speak Your Truth with Mark Ross podcast. I'm your host, Mark Ross, and with me this evening, ladies and gentlemen, I have with me J. Edwards Holt. He hails from North Carolina, and he is a children's book author. He's a minister, and you do some poetry too, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Uh-huh.
And you are a mental health advocate.
That's correct.
Yes. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you for having me.
All right. And before we get started, I just want to say, if you guys have any questions that you want to ask of myself or Jay during our interview, you can. If it's directed for Jay, I will read it and I will let him respond. Right. And so with that being said, Brother Jay, you are a mental health advocate. Let's talk about that first.
Okay.
How did you get into mental health advocacy?
So when I was 10 years old, I was diagnosed with Tourette syndrome. And not too long after that, I was diagnosed with ADHD, and then anxiety, then depression, and then OCD. So I pretty much, spent the majority of my life just, dealing with those mental illnesses day in and day out. It made school hard. It made college hard. It makes work hard. So it's something I've dealt with for a long time, and I want to pass my experience on to others and help them in any way that I can.
Now you said you were diagnosed with 5 mental health issues. I just wanted to know, because that seems like a lot going on up here, right? Talk to me about the struggle that you had dealing with all of those issues at the same time.
Yeah, it was a whirlwind.
Yeah.
I used to be so jealous of the other kids because most kids are carefree and just they do their school and they go home, they play games and have fun. But I was always worrying about things that kids shouldn't worry about. Like thinking something was wrong with me, or how I was going to, what medication I was going to take next or something like that. And it was overwhelming. It was really hard to deal with, for sure.
Sure. And do you still have issues with the Tourette's?
I still have it, but what I have is a really mild form of it. Not with the cursing or anything like that. If someone's around me long enough, they might see some tics, and I notice them myself. But a lot of people don't know I have it unless I tell them. So it's a milder form, but it's really all the other stuff that kind of hit me the hardest.
And which diagnosis do you have the most trouble with dealing with?
OCD. That's the one that has really been the worst for me, for sure. It's it's interfered with a lot of stuff that I tried to accomplish in my life. And then second would be the anxiety, but mostly the OCD is the hardest thing to deal with, because it's hard to treat, for one thing.
And with the medication you're taking, is that helping?
Yeah, it helps, but it doesn't get rid of it entirely. It still comes and goes more,
Sure, but you're more aware of how to deal with it when it comes.
Yeah.
Okay. Now growing up, this is a question that was curious for me. How did your parents handle, the idea of you dealing with so much as a kid or as a teenager?
Yeah, it was hard, especially on my mom, because she was the one that I lived with most of the time. And so she had to see it all. And, I kind of just unloaded everything on her. And a lot of my other family kind of didn't see it. And there were times when they thought that she was making it up or something like that. And so that made it even harder because, people didn't believe I was going through something. They came up with excuses and all that kind of stuff.
Mm.
Yeah, but as a single parent, it was hard for her, you know, dealing with that and trying to get me the right help and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's good. Well, bless your mother's heart, brother.
Yeah.
And I I know I said that you had your degree in education. How difficult was that journey for you going to college and juggling all that?
College was very difficult. It took me a lot longer to get my degree than it should have because I dealt with different kinds of OCD and anxiety and social anxiety that prevented me from going to class or staying in class, or just OCD like behaviors and rituals that would keep me from studying and things like that. So it took me a while to get through college. But there came a point when I came across a college professor that just somehow miraculously seemed to understand what I was going through and started working with me, and I started gaining confidence. And that's when I started performing a lot better and, closer to the best of my ability.
Mm. That strikes a point, Jay. It's good to have positive people in your corner,
Mm-hmm.
especially when things aren't looking so good for you. You had someone that took the time to recognize that you were battling something that was semi out of your control, semi,
Mm-hmm.
right? But
Right.
he helped you build the confidence and gave you the mindset that you can instead
Mm-hmm.
of you can't.
Right.
In your advocacy, do you tell people that you can instead of you can't?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And that's a lot of what my memoir book is about. They Don't Define Me. It's a lot of encouragement about how you can overcome your illnesses, and you don't have to be defined by them. And um, you know having the right people in your corner is very important. um, but yeah, absolutely, I tell people all the time, if I can do it, you can do it.
Mm, amen to that. And do you go to schools to talk about this or
I
uh,
have, yeah.
okay, okay, good, good. Speaking of your books, you wrote a few books. So talk about that book that you had along with the other books that you wrote.
Yeah, this one is it's called They Don't I'm trying to get the camera right. It's
Yeah.
called They Don't Define Me.
Okay.
Story of a lifelong battle with mental illness and how to rise above your diagnosis. Basically what it is it talks about my early journey and my early diagnosis with these five mental illnesses. It talks about some of the struggles that I went through, the ups and downs, and then most importantly, it talks about ways that I found to cope. Um, as I'll say in the book, it's not a cure all. I still struggle with this stuff, but I found ways to make it easier. And I just wanted to write something that, hopefully long after I'm gone, people can look at this and see the ways that I've learned to deal with things. And maybe it'll just help somebody along the way, is what I hope.
Indeed.
Um, and then there's a lot of encouraging affirmations and things, and um, some different hotlines and things that you can call if you're having a certain problem and all that.
Mhm.
But the ultimate goal is to just, you know, make it so that what I've experienced, doesn't go untold.
Hmm. Good. What about your other books?
The other books I write are quite different. It's a lot of fantasy fiction, mostly in the young adult category, and I've done a children's book.
Hmm.
But that's my favorite thing to write is young adult fantasy.
cool. And just on a personal note, I saw that you were a comic book fan. You have a comic book collection.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't, been collecting them as much lately, but yeah,
Yeah,
I love comic books.
indeed. I used to collect comic books quite often when I was younger, man. And the question that me and my friends used to always argue was who's better, Marvel or DC, you know.
Oh,
And
yeah.
and I'm gonna tell you, brother, I'm still a Marvel head, man.
Yeah, I am too. Yeah, I definitely prefer Marvel. I've always loved those characters more, and the
Yeah,
movies, I love the movies too.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
but yeah, I've always been more into the Marvel characters.
Indeed, man, indeed. Who's your favorite?
Um, well, he's not really a hero, but I like Loki. I always like Loki. Just I don't know. It's the whole. I don't know. I just like something about him and the Thor stuff, all that
Yeah,
mystical stuff and like that, the mythological stuff.
big-
But of course, I love pretty much all of them.
yeah. My favorite was Silver Surfer. So
Oh yeah, yeah,
yeah,
that's a
yeah.
cool one too.
Indeed, brother. You're a minister. What made you get into the ministry?
um, I pretty much grew up in church from the time I was very young, and I was around the ministry a lot, and I'd say most of my growing up was in the church, and I was part of several ministry programs, and I just decided from a young age I wanted to be a part of the ministry, and I did it in various ways. Um, and then after I started writing, I decided to make that my ministry and the different kinds of things I do with that.
Mhm. Okay, okay. Uh, I had to do some research on people like yourself, Jay, and the word that came up was comorbidity. I don't know if you're familiar with that word, comorbidity, and it's experiencing multiple mental health disorders.
Hmm.
And I just want to read something. I try to do statistics to, I guess, illustrate a point. And 45% of people experience this. So this is period. So
Hmm.
so I say that to say you're not alone with this issue. Uh it's a lot of people out there that deal with more than just one diagnosis. And uh I don't know, have you ever encountered someone that dealt with as many diagnoses as yourself?
Definitely not as many. No, I've not encountered many people at all that had more than one or something like that. Especially when I was a kid, it was I don't know why, but back in the '90s, we didn't. That stuff wasn't. I guess it was really frowned upon, and especially adults. A lot of them back then, just didn't accept it. I guess,
Mhm.
um, and so I was always looking for other kids that had something like that, but it was hard to find.
Mm, mm, mm. That's interesting. Uh, because and the reason why I say that is because I had to really think about that and ask myself if there's more than one issue that I deal with, because I deal with PTSD,
Hmm.
military related PTSD, and I think because I waited for such a long period of time to deal with it, I had to process a lot of this stuff on my own. And I don't, I can admit that I probably didn't process it effectively because I
Hmm.
took it out on drinking, right? A reckless lifestyle. Uh, I just didn't care. I was suicidal for a while. Uh, so maybe there's something else going on with me
Hmm.
because of my, I'm not going to say untreated diagnosis, but neglected. I neglected to do something about it. Um, in your work, have you encountered people that said, "Hey, I know something's going on, but I really don't know what's going on with me."
Yeah, that's another point I touch on here in the book. How early treatment is really important. Like just for pretty much any disease. It's early treatment is key. It's good to treat it as soon as possible because the longer you wait, the worse it can get, and then it's even harder to fight. Um, you know, and I know a lot of, especially adults, do that. Where they put it off and they self medicate or something like that, and it can really be harmful.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I always tell people, seek a professional. Don't be ashamed because there's so many people out there going through this stuff, and the professionals, they don't judge you or anything like that. So it's best to really seek help as soon as you can. But I know that really is hard sometimes,
Mm-hmm. It is.
because I've had times where I just didn't want to do therapy. I was just tired of it, and I was like, I don't really need that much help. And
Mm.
then it gets worse and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. So
Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can relate to that because that's why I said neglecting, the
mhm.
neglecting or the putting off. Because number one, Jay, I didn't want to admit that something was wrong with me, even though I knew because
Mhm.
of the way that I was acting, and and I just didn't want to. I didn't want to admit to myself that I was broken.
Right.
I guess that's really the crux of why I did everything else but seek help, is because I didn't want to admit that I was broken.
hmm Yeah, definitely. And especially, as men, we want to seem all put together, and we don't want to, you
Mm.
know, we want to seem like we have it all together. I mean, I know I do. So,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So, it wasn't until now, mind you, I didn't start experiencing symptoms of PTSD until 92. I'm a little older than
Mhm.
you. I got out of the Marine Corps in 91. I
Mhm.
didn't start seeing anything until the early part of 92. At that point, I just figured, well, I was in the military for 4 years, so and I've seen some things, I've been through some BS, right?
Mhm.
And maybe it's just my body's way of reminding me of what I went through, right?
Mhm.
Started having the nightmares, started having night terrors, uh, I started losing sleep. I don't know if
Mhm.
you ever lost sleep because of what you had to deal with,
Mhm.
uh, and it it started it started it started me to a downward spiral.
Mhm.
You use the word self medicate, and I used alcohol as my way to self medicate. I drank the pain away,
Mhm.
and I struggled with school, and I did, and sadly, I didn't have that person like that you did to keep me on point and to help me finish strong.
Mhm.
I didn't have that somebody. And even though I had friends, Jay, I didn't trust them enough to tell them what I was really dealing with. I mean,
Right.
for real. And this is back in
Mhm.
the 90s, the early 90s, late 90s. And back at that time, Jay, mental health was not talked about.
Right.
It just wasn't. And
Mhm.
and I said earlier, I did a live video earlier, and I said that back in my day, when I was younger, we were told to suck it up.
Mm.
Nothing's wrong with you. Just have a
Mhm.
drink, or go out, kick with a nice female. Just do something.
Yeah.
Do something else other than get help.
Mhm.
That was the treatment plan for me.
Mm.
And I wish that somebody would have pulled me off to the side like somebody did you. You know,
Mhm.
because I think it would have saved a lot more lives. I think it would have prevented a lot of people from going over the deep end,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why we need people like yourself and myself to advocate to the masses that, number one, it's okay to not be okay.
Right.
That's something that everybody needs to understand. It's okay to not be okay. If you're
Mm-hmm.
going through a bad moment in life and things just don't add up,
Mm-hmm.
it's okay. You're
Right.
entitled to that. Don't do
Mm-hmm.
nothing crazy,
Yeah.
but
Mm-hmm.
let's just acknowledge that it's okay.
Right.
Okay. Uh, um, so what is the extent of your advocacy though, in terms of what you do to promote mental
Mm-hmm. You know, aside from this book, I do a lot of mental health, promotion through social media. In addition, I write for a magazine called Exceptional Needs Today. It's a free online magazine. It's a great resource for anybody that's got like a physical disability or a mental disability. Um, I came across them in 2020. Uh, I found their magazine online, and I, sent the editor a message, and I was like, "Hey, I'm not a, doctor or anything like that, but I'm an author that's had a lifetime of dealing with this stuff, so I'd love to write for you guys." And so I've been writing for them ever since, and I love doing that. And
Mhm.
the magazine is meant to like promote inclusion for people with disabilities, and bring awareness to people, and hopefully make more people more open to talk about it.
Mhm. Mhm. Have you been in any speaking engagements?
I have, yeah. I just read last week at a school event, or week before last at a school event.
Good, good, good. What about your poetry? Talk about your poetry.
Yeah, I wrote a poetry book. It's called The Reason for Rhyming. It's got all kinds of different poems in it. Most of them are fantasy themed, like the other books I have, and some of them are just kind of random. But I've always enjoyed writing poems, and so I decided to take some of my old ones, write some new ones, and put them in a book. Um, and then I had a poem not too long ago that won a competition. It's a poem called "The Weight I Bear." It was about my experience as a teenager dealing. I dealt with an eating disorder because they put me on some medication that made me gain a whole lot of weight, and so I had to deal with the effects of that in addition to what I already had going on.
Mm,
And it was just a short poem about um, some of the feelings I had then, and they liked it and published it on their website. So,
nice, nice. And you mentioned something. You mentioned medications. Uh, have you ever experienced any adverse effects from the medications you take or
um, the
fast?
ones, not the ones I'm on now, but in the past, yeah, I've had all kinds of side effects from medications.
Okay, okay. Ranging from what?
Let's see, just like ones that made me feel, extremely depressed or extremely anxious, or like just sick feeling, or
Mm,
um, like I said, the weight gain or something like that, any kind of side effects.
mhm. Have you ever reached a point in your life that you didn't want to take those medications anymore? You just like, you know what? This is too much.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been on, like, too many at one time before, and I just had to,
Yeah.
cut it back. And um, I was on too many one time, and I just, basically slept all the time. And,
Mm,
finally the doctor cut them back, and I was able to kind of start living again.
mm, mhm.
Um, the ones I'm on now, I'm pretty happy with them, but in the past, I've definitely had some trouble with adjusting.
Good. Yeah. Good. Because that's a big fear for a lot of people. We've discovered that if you have an issue, a mental health issue, they put you on these medications, right? And depending on the medication, you can have certain side effects to the
Mhm.
medication. Because of that, they put you on medications to help with
Yeah.
the side effects. And there's a
Mhm.
possibility, Jay, that there may be side effects to that portion of
Mhm.
medication that you're taking. So you'll give you another medication for that,
Yep.
and so on and so on. And I had to reach a point, that for I wasn't a fan of medications
Mhm.
at all because, yeah, I need them, but to deal with the side effects of some of those, no, I'll take my chances.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's something you have to be really careful with because you might come across a doctor that just wants to push medications and push medications
Yeah.
and I've come across that before. And so anytime I go to say a new doctor or something, I'm very careful with that. I research the medicine and, see if the benefits outweigh the risks and all that stuff. And, there've been plenty of situations where I was just like, you know what, I'd just rather deal with what I have than deal with these side effects. I mean,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. I get it. I get it. Because it just gets exhausting,
Hmm.
to take 5 pills in the morning and then 5 pills in the afternoon and 5 pills after dinner and,
Yeah.
you know, pills to put you to sleep. It's like, what the hell? This is just too much, you
I
know.
know I've been told, they have I think for Tourette's and for OCD, they have these different kinds of surgeries or something, and it's in your brain or something. And I'm just like, no, I'd just rather live with what I've got than take a chance on being paralyzed or I don't know what else.
I hear you, man. I hear you. That's crazy. Uh,
Mhm.
so, uh, what advice could you give to somebody that's struggling mentally to really help them get through their moment, Jay?
Mhm. I would say, it's important to realize that you're not alone, because you and I have both been through stuff, and
Mm,
it's very important to reach out to professional help. To get professional help, not just your family and friends, because
mm,
they want to help you probably, but they're not able to in the way that a professional will. So
mhm,
definitely, get that professional help and get treated the right way, and
mhm,
just know that there's going to be some ups and downs, but you can get through it and you can be better for it.
mm. Amen to that. What's next for you in your journey?
Um, right now I'm working on another book, another fantasy book. I love writing them, and so that's what I'm working on now. And hopefully after that, I can start work on another one. And I hope to do some more, speak some more publicly soon, and things like that. Though, especially with summer coming up. So
Indeed, man. How can people reach you?
you can do a Google search for J. Edwards Holt, or go to my website, jedwardsholt.com. People can also reach me by email. It's j@jedwardsholt.com. And then I can be found on pretty much all the social media sites with at J. Edwards Holt.
Mm, okay. Speaking of J. Edwards Holt, it's been a pleasure taking this short period of time to talk with you about your life and the things that you do. And um, I pray that your advocacy continues to grow
Thank you.
and your influence and your reach continues to grow as well, sir.
Thank
Uh,
you.
we really need people to like us to really help break
Hmm.
that stigma of mental health and how real it is because people are here dying.
Mm.
You know,
Yep.
we can't dismiss that fact that
Right.
health is real and that we need to really take ownership of what
Hmm.
we're dealing with. We can't sit back and twiddle our fingers and expect others to really do for us that we can do for ourselves. And
Right.
that's to first acknowledge,
Hmm.
really sit your ass down and have an honest conversation with yourself and say, look, I'm not well, self.
Hmm. Right.
you need to start here. Self, I am not well, and I need to do something about it.
Right.
You know. We need to start there, for real.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I just hope that people continue to listen to the work that we're doing.
Absolutely.
Our job here is to save lives, brother.
Yes, for sure.
Mm-hmm. J. Edwards Holt, it's been a pleasure, sir.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you, sir. And to all those listening, my name is Mark Ross, and this has been another episode of the Speak Your Truth with Mark Ross. Remember, self-care is important, so please make your mental health and your physical health a priority. Do it every day, and you do it first. Good night, everybody, and good night, Jay.
Good night.
All right, man. Take care.
You too. Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.